Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Saira Mushtaba and with me is Reshma Tiwari, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacts with India's COVID vaccine manufacturers in New Delhi, stresses on the need to institutionalize the best practices in tune with global standards. Poland recognizes India's Serum Institute manufactured Covishield vaccine. Russia reports 1,075 COVID-19 deaths on Saturday as country gets ready for nationwide workplace shutdown next month. Protest march continues in several cities of Bangladesh against killings of minorities in the country. Consulate General of India organizes webinar in Guangzhou to promote Indian products on Chinese e-commerce platforms. India nominates Tamil film Kurangal as its official entry to Oscars 2022. Saudi Arabia sets targets of zero net emissions by 2060. And in T20 World Cup, England defeat West Indies by 6 wickets. India lock horns with Pakistan on Sunday. As India has created history by vaccinating 100 crore people against COVID-19, All India Radio salutes all the doctors, nurses, other frontline workers and all those who got vaccinated and made this possible. Even though the country has achieved this feat, we caution our listeners that the battle against COVID is not yet over. We appeal to our listeners to get fully vaccinated at the earliest and also help others get vaccinated. During the festive season, please follow these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact national helpline numbers 011-2397-8046 and 1075. And now the news in detail. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today exhorted that India needs to institutionalize the best practices learned during the last 1.5 years, as it is an opportunity to modify practices in tune with global standards. The Prime Minister said this during his interaction with the domestic vaccine manufacturers from his residence in New Delhi. Mr. Modi said that vaccine manufacturers should continuously work together to be ready to face future challenges. He said that the entire world is looking up to India in the backdrop of the success of the vaccination drive. During his interaction, Mr. Modi also praised the efforts of the vaccine manufacturers, which has resulted in the country crossing the milestone of 100 crore vaccinations. The Prime Minister said that they have played a big role in the success story of India. He appreciated their hard work and confidence given by them during the pandemic. The major COVID-19 vaccine manufacturers hailed Prime Minister Modi's leadership as a key factor in India being able to administer 100 crore vaccine doses in just about 9 months. Poland has joined the growing group of nations to recognize India's Serum Institute manufactured Covishield vaccine. In a tweet, the Polish embassy in India said, Poland now recognizes Covishield as a vaccine equivalent to those recognized by the EU. This means that fully vaccinated individuals who took the Covishield vaccine are exempted from quarantine after entering the territory of Poland.
Russia reported 1,075 COVID-19 deaths today as the authorities get ready to shut workplaces countrywide and lock down the capital Moscow. This is Russia's 5th straight daily record as over 37,678 new corona cases were reported in the country. Despite developing one of the world's first vaccines against COVID-19, Russia has vaccinated only about a third of its population, one of the lowest rates in Europe. President Vladimir Putin has already approved a nationwide workplace shutdown in the first week of November. Moscow will also reimpose a partial lockdown from 28th of October, with only essential shops such as pharmacies and supermarkets allowed to remain open. Demonstrations, sit-ins and protest marches continued to take place across several cities in Bangladesh today against the attack on the minority community during the last few days of Durga Puja. In the capital city Dhaka, the Hindu, Buddhist, Christian Oikea Parishad organized a sit-in and hunger strike in front of the National Museum. The protesters also blocked the busy Shahbag intersection in the city for more than an hour, leading to large traffic snarls on the main road. The protesters condemned the attack on the minority community in the wake of the desecration of the Holy Quran inside a Kumilla Durga Mandap on 13th of October. The speakers at the demonstration demanded immediate arrest of the perpetrators of violence. In other cities of Bangladesh, also the Hindu, Buddhist, Christian Oikea Parishad organized a protest rally in the town hall against the communal violence.
Union Home Minister Amit Shah today reviewed the security situation in Jammu and Kashmir and the steps needed to be taken to combat terrorism in the valley. Mr. Shah reviewed the security scenario at a meeting held at Raj Bhavan in Srinagar. The meeting was attended by Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha and top officials of civil administration and senior security officials from the Army, CRPF, police and other agencies. The Home Minister reached Srinagar this morning on a 3-day visit to the Union Territory. The visit comes in the wake of a spate of recent terror attacks on civilians, particularly non-local labourers and minorities. Addressing the gathering this evening, Mr. Shah urged the youth of Jammu and Kashmir to contribute to the development of the Union Territory.
टेररिज्म के समाचार आते थे, हिंसा के समाचार आते थे। आज वही कश्मीर में, वही कश्मीर का युवा, वही जम्मू का युवा विकास की बात कर रहा है, स्किल अपग्रेडेशन की बात कर रहा है, रोजगारी की बात कर रहा है, अपने पढ़ने के लिए जो वजीफा मिला है इसकी बात कर रहा है। कितना भारी बदलाव हुआ और मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाता हूँ युवा साथियों, ये बदलाव को कोई नहीं रोक सकता। कोई कितनी भी ताकत आजमा ले, ये बदलाव के बयार को अब कोई रोक नहीं सकता। ये आगे बढ़ने वाली है और कश्मीर में एक नए युग की शुरुआत है।
This is the first visit by Home Minister Amit Shah to Jammu and Kashmir after the abrogation of Article 370 in 2019. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on Jammu and Kashmir March on the Path of Development. The participants are K.V. Prasad, political analyst, and Sonu Sood, AIR correspondent.
This week, Jammu and Kashmir administration signed a Memorandum of Understanding with the government of Dubai for real estate development, industrial parks, IT towers, multi-purpose towers, logistics, medical college, super speciality hospital and more. Mr. Prasad, can you tell us about the significance of this in the entire context of development initiatives in Jammu and Kashmir, where rapid progress has been seen on various government projects?
This is a very significant milestone in the development of Jammu and Kashmir after it became a union territory. In particular, because the government has been mentioning of the fact that administration, the change in way the setup has been made is to ensure that there is an all-round, especially industrial development. And if you remember, way back in 2015, when the erstwhile Jammu Kashmir was still there, the Prime Minister had announced an 8,000 crore package, of which what we hear some time ago, that almost 54 projects have been started and 17 have been completed. So this is just while referring to what you said, the particular of industrial package and the package of that industrial parks and real estate with Dubai. As we all know, Dubai is one of the very advanced in terms of building technology, and they have done a wonderful job. If people who have been traveled to those parts will realize the kind of real estate development that has taken place in that part of the world. And today, if they have signed a memorandum of understanding, certainly should boost the kind of logistics the government of India wants to develop in that region, so as to ensure that the people of the Jammu and Kashmir are getting the benefit as everybody else in the country. Today, I think we'll have a direct flight going from Srinagar to Sharjah, which of course is one of the areas in the UAE, United Arab Emirates, where Dubai is located.
Home and Cooperation Minister Amit Shah is on his first visit to Jammu and Kashmir after the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A. He has in fact inaugurated this flight also, which you mentioned. He will also hold discussions on the development initiatives in Jammu and Kashmir. How important are these projects for overall development of the economy of the state and socio-economic development also?
Well, for a long time, this has been the bane that development in Jammu Kashmir has been, of course, if we all know, Jammu Kashmir was predominantly dependent largely on the tourism sector. And in the interim period, when militancy broke off 1990, for a very long time, this whole industry was crumbled. And there was no alternate to any development model available in that particular part. And since 2019, since the abrogation of 370 and it has become the union territory, the government of India has made special focus and special plans. As I said, the Prime Minister already made package announcement earlier. But further to that, there have been several plans that have been drawn, and one of the biggest, very ambitious scheme is to get something like 50,000 crores investment in the state. The idea is have an all-round industrial development, because largely it has been noticed that in the erstwhile state of Jammu Kashmir, the people were, as I said, tourism was the only industry which was flourishing till militancy hit that. And then subsequently, they were either dependent on the government of Jammu and Kashmir for employment, which again is limited in area. So to address these challenges, the government of India and since the Union Territory of the state of Jammu and Kashmir had decided, and there are several all-round development projects. As you said, industrial development is one aspect of it. If you remember, in this month of August, the Home Minister had launched a web portal for registration of units under the new central sector schemes for industrial development. The whole idea is to make the skills available to people, make them aware, and on the idea is when you make them aware, encourage them, and also encourage private industry which wants to invest in the state but was waiting for a conducive atmosphere. And the whole effort in the last 2 years has been to create an atmosphere of conducivity where people, the investors find the confidence. And it's not just investments. Obviously, investment mean if somebody goes there, you need power, you need roads, you need infrastructure, you need a lot of connectivity. So all this goes without saying. So it's an all-round development that is being looked at, and that reasons are there are many other projects which are related to it, which are drawing boards, and some are, as I mentioned, are already in the pipeline and some are rolling out on the projects.
You talked about this new central sector scheme. In the same announcement, special measures like in GST up to 300% refund on plant and machinery, and for a period of 10 years also a provision for interest subsidy have been introduced to make it attractive for companies to invest in Jammu and Kashmir. You feel these kind of incentives will have an impact and you see more and more companies coming to Jammu and Kashmir?
These incentives or tax breaks, as they're called in terms of policies, essentially to attract investments. And if you take the role models which are available in other hill states in the neighboring areas, many of the hill states in this country had almost similar concessions in terms of subsidies, in terms of tax breaks, which allow industries to go there, give them incentives to go and invest. And when you invest, you start a manufacturing unit. It generates employment for the people who are staying there. Of course, there will be some people coming from outside to help you, but by and large, then it develops the whole region around it. The ancillary industries come up, the spin-off benefit of a big industrial. And when you mentioned in particular the GST 300% refund for plant and machinery for 10 years, that's a long period, because if somebody is going to invest some thousands of crores or hundreds of crores in buying plant and machinery, very costly equipment, and goes and installs them, obviously the kind of investment that person makes, let us not forget that anybody who invests money looks at the return of investment, as they call the ROI. And that is, if a big company goes who are answerable to their shareholders, obviously, these are all issues which are commercial, which are capital intensive, and they are business-driven decisions. So to incentivize such things, and if you look at the larger plan of developing, and let us not forget, one of the things that India has been trying for the last 2 years is to try and get investments or try and get companies to ship their shop floors from a country like China. If you remember the trade war with China, US had. Since then, a lot of companies are looking for different areas to come and relocate. I mean, one of the country, India is offering incentives for people to do that. So this has to look in the holistically. Jammu Kashmir needs special attention, and that's what the government is doing.
Now, they have announced a lot of ambitious projects like road infrastructure worth about 38,000 crore rupees. 4 national highway projects are underway, gas pipeline project, hydroelectricity projects, metro projects. So you feel all this is going to uplift the economic condition of the people in the Jammu and Kashmir and generate employment, as you said?
As you go along, this is bound to happen. This should happen. It's a logical consequence because as I mentioned to you, when you give incentives to industries also look at infrastructure. They need connectivity, as I said, to move goods and material from one place to another, both within the state and outside the state. They need good quality power and assurance that they can run their industry uninterrupted for the time they want to manufacture something. So, and when you said hydroelectric, it has a twin advantage. For instance, one of the hydroelectric projects, which is about 196 megawatts, worth some 9,000 crores. That will also irrigate something like 31,000 hectares. So which means it also helps the agriculture sector in that region. Similarly, there's that Pakuldhul project in Kishtwar, where again it is expected with something like 3,300 mega units to be produced annually. And that is expected to be ready in 2 years. So infrastructure is all round. And when you mention the national highways, is important because you don't still have a very wide network of railways because of the difficult terrain, while we are still laying the railway tracks. So national highways become important and that too all-weather roads is what people look at.
Mr. Prasad, you think the government is taking a very focused approach to establish industry in the Jammu and Kashmir? They have identified land bank, they have identified 292 industrial zones, and there are particular zillas, which they have identified in Ladakh, in Kashmir, where the industries can, establish themselves. So you feel that it will help the industries to identify where to establish themselves, to identify where they will be getting all the amenities which are required, as you just outlined, for any industry to establish itself.
What the government does and government should do is to enable people to come. And that is what is required. As I mentioned, you need infrastructure, you need good quality power, you need connectivity, you need some skilled manpower, which obviously would be available for some time, or if not, you have to train them and bring them on. So the essence of it is the government can make a place attractive for the industry to find itself commercially viable to go and operate. Because as I said, the bottom line is you obviously need to generate enough money to sustain the project, and B, when you talk of sustaining the project, you also have to ensure that there is a return of investment. It works both ways, and the government's effort is to enable the industry find its feet by way of things it needs in terms of long-term support. And as you mentioned, one of the facts of GST 10 years is a long-term support. Similarly, tax concessions probably could be thought of when the industry gets going. Specific industries which the government thinks can be benefiting the region, and if the industry also finds it. And after all, these policies are made by the government actually talking to some of the stakeholders. It's not just some people just making policy and then waiting for something to happen. These happen out of certain conversations that are going on with different trade bodies, industries bodies, which have been operating in the region or find potential to go there. And once a project comes up, factory comes up, or a plant and machinery is set up, and so many, as I said, it leads to development. And this is not going to happen overnight. This is a long-term plan. You begin today, you'll start seeing the fruits in, say, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and so on and so forth, because you have to have that staying power. And that is what is required. And that is where the government steps in to ensure, hold your hand and say, okay, you go ahead. We'll help you in these sectors. So I think that's what they're trying to do in tandem.
Mr. Prasad, when you talk about enabling environment and when you talk about all-round development, then you feel that this gains significance, that equal emphasis has been laid on education. 7 new medical colleges and 5 new nursing colleges have been sanctioned. Then electricity for all has been achieved. Clean drinking water to all, the target has been set for August 15, 2022. And if we talk about PM Ayushman Bharat Yojana, then Jammu and Kashmir is the only state where every person has received the benefit. Housing projects, PM Awas Yojana, urban, PM Awas Yojana, rural, they are progressing at a rapid pace. So you think this is also very important to make the environment conducive for people to not only gain employment, but be employable?
There are 2 aspects to it. One is people of Jammu and Kashmir who have been staying there need facilities at par with everybody else in the country. So the whole effort is to show that the basic amenities which were not available are made available. And what are they? A clean drinking water, a good place to stay, and health facilities which are accessible for all, affordable health facilities. And I think some of the, as you mentioned also, the number of beneficiaries under the PM Ayushman Bharat scheme or the urban housing mission or the rural housing mission. So this whole effort is targeted. And not to forget those the ongoing central schemes like the Ujjwala, the DBT we mentioned earlier, or One Nation, One Ration Card, because that will also help people who are migrating from other parts of the country to go and pick up employment. As I said, if skilled workers have to migrate to that, if industry is set up there and they have to migrate. And the whole idea is if you're registered as a ration drawer in some other part of the country, and you are now working in another part of the country, the whole idea is it should be seamless in terms of your drawing benefits to the government. The idea is to make people of the Union Territory comfortable, get the basic amenities and improve their standard of living so that they feel comfortable And when there is a sense of comfort, so productivity increases not just for industry, but all round development of the state.
So attracting investment to the state is definitely bearing fruits. We have just seen this MOU which has been signed with the government of Dubai. Now, what challenges do you foresee which will come in the way of further development?
Well, right now, one of the most important things, and I think today the Home Minister, Operation Minister, who has gone to Srinagar in particular, the first meeting he has taken is to make sure that the review of security, because the recent incidents we all know, where two people from other parts of this were shot in Srinagar, or the kind of the rise of militant activities and terrorist activities in the region. So I think this is what is, obviously the government is very aware of it, and today's security review would obviously look at these aspects, because a conducive environment requires an element of peace and stability, and that's what the government's promised to help you to maintain that, because everything else falls in place accordingly. So this is a challenge which the government obviously is addressing today. And as we go along, as I said, there are other challenges which will come in the form of incentivizing. The industry should feel confident of, as I said, when they go there, okay, we make a good investment decision and then wait for the gestation period to get over and then get it on stream. So this, as I said in the program earlier too, this is a process which has just begun. It will take some time for bearing fruition. So there is an element of patience. And what probably we are seeing is some kind of hurdles that come up periodically, which will be sorted out as you go along.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prasad, for this insightful discussion.
Thank you.
This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts. As part of its efforts to promote Indian products in South China, the Consulate General of India in Guangzhou organized a webinar on promoting Indian products on Chinese e-commerce platforms yesterday. In a statement, the consulate said more than 80 Indian exporters and representatives of Indian Export Promotion Councils or EPCs took part in the webinar. Consul General Shambhu Haki briefed Indian exporters about market opportunities in the Chinese e-commerce market. The representatives from the Cross-Border Association of Guangdong, an online trading association, and e-commerce companies like T-Mall Global, Jingdong Worldwide, Micromart, and China E-Commerce Operation Agency made presentations regarding modalities of selling Indian products on their platforms, including import-export procedures and regulations. During the event, Chairman of Council for Leather Exports, Sanjay Likha, and Dr. Smita Nagarkote from the Carpet Export Promotion Council made brief remarks on behalf of the Indian Export Promotion Councils. Tamil film Kurangal has been announced as India's official entry to the Oscars 2022. Shaji N. Karun, the chairperson of the 15-member selection committee set up by the Film Federation of India, made the announcement today. Directed by debutant P.S. Vinod Raj, Kurangal tells the story of an alcoholic father and his son and the journey to bring back the mother who has left the home. The film will compete for the Best International Feature Film at the 94th Academy Awards to be held on 27th of March next year in Los Angeles. Earlier this year, Kurangal had also won the prestigious Tiger Award, the top honor at the 50th edition of the International Film Festival, Rotterdam, this year.
Saudi Arabia aims to reach zero net emissions by 2060 and more than double its annual target to reduce carbon emissions. Speaking at the Saudi Green Initiative in the capital Riyadh, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman said that the kingdom would tackle climate change while ensuring oil market stability, stressing the continued importance of hydrocarbons. Saudi Arabia in March this year pledged to reduce carbon emissions by more than 4% of global contributions. It said that would involve generating 50% of its energy needs from renewables by 2030 and planting billions of trees in the desert state. First Vice President of South Sudan, Dr. Riek Machar, has assured South Sudan's commitment for pro-investment policy towards India. Minister of State for External Affairs V. Muralidharan met him recently during his 3-day visit to South Sudan. They discussed ways to take cooperation, including trade and investment, further. During the meeting, Mr. Muralidharan's visit, President of South Sudan, General Salva Kiir Mayardit, has also agreed to allot land for a temple and a cremation ground in Juba. Mr. Muralidharan said that this was a long-awaited demand of the Indian community.
The group of 7 nations agreed on principles to govern cross-border data use and digital trade. Trade ministers from the G7 reached the agreement at a meeting in London yesterday. Britain described it as a breakthrough that could liberalize hundreds of billions of dollars of international commerce. The deal sets out a middle ground between highly regulated data protection regimes used in European countries and the more open approach of the United States. In a statement, Britain said, "We have adopted the G7 digital trade principles that will guide the G7's approach to digital trade." G7 comprises the US, Japan, Germany, Britain, France, Italy and Canada. US has expressed serious concern over what it described as the continued erosion of human rights and fundamental freedom in Hong Kong. A statement by the US State Department noted the increase in politically motivated prosecutions through the national security law. It called upon Beijing and Hong Kong authorities to release those unjustly detained and cease their crackdown on peaceful civil society organizations. It urged Beijing to abide by its treaty obligations in the Sino-British Joint Declaration.
In the T20 Cricket World Cup, India will take on arch rivals Pakistan in their first group game tomorrow at Dubai. India have won all their matches against Pakistan in the World Cup, both in the ODI and T20 formats. Overall, India and Pakistan have played each other 7 times in the ODI World Cup and 5 times in the T20 World Cup. India have emerged victorious on all the occasions. On the eve of the all-important match, Indian skipper Virat Kohli said in a press conference that the focus of Indian team is to play well in the World Cup. All India Radio is broadcasting ball-by-ball commentary of the World Cup matches. In the opening match of Super 12 stage of the tournament today, Australia defeated South Africa by 5 wickets in Abu Dhabi. Earlier, South Africa were restricted to 118 for 9 in the stipulated 20 overs. Australia chased down the target of 119 runs in 19.4 overs. In the second match, England crushed defending champion West Indies by 6 wickets in Dubai today. Chasing a paltry target of 56 runs for victory, England reached the target in just 8.2 overs with loss of only 4 wickets. Now let's take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Guardian says Facebook crisis grows as new whistleblower and leaked documents emerge. The Globe and Mail reports Boris Johnson rejects vaccine passports and masks mandates as UK faces surge of COVID-19 infections. The Washington Post writes YouTube streaming star Valkyrie launches skincare line to controversy, ethical questions. Financial Times reports Saudi Arabia pledges 2060 net zero target ahead of COP26 summit. Wall Street Journal says US allies try to move beyond disputes over Afghanistan submarine contract.
A quick look at the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacts with India's COVID vaccine manufacturers in New Delhi, stresses on need to institutionalize the best practices in tune with global standards. Poland recognizes India's Serum Institute manufactured Covishield vaccine. Russia reports 1,075 COVID-19 deaths on Saturday as country gets ready for nationwide workplace shutdown next month. Protest march continues in several cities of Bangladesh against killings of minority community in the country. Consulate General of India organizes webinar in Guangzhou to promote Indian products on Chinese e-commerce platforms. India nominates Tamil film Kurangal as its official entry to Oscars 2022. Saudi Arabia sets target of zero net emissions by 2060. And in T20 World Cup, England defeat West Indies by 6 wickets. India will lock horns with Pakistan on Sunday. India is celebrating the 152nd birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let's listen to his favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Denmark.
Vaishnav Jan tu tine kahiye je peed parai jaane re par dukhe upkar karne tae man abhiman naane re Vaishnav Jan tu tine kahiye je peed parai jaane re
And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.